Good evening. I'm Michael Williams. For those of you who were not able to join us for our 6 p.m. on-air newscast, the expected but no less sad news coming from the Surfside condominium collapse. The mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniela Levine Cava, joined by fire officials and others just moments ago, wrapping up a news conference where she acknowledged what everyone had known in their minds, but it was so difficult to accept with hearts, most particularly for the victims of the now 54 people confirmed dead, 8 more bodies found today in the search by those heroic fire crews have been working there 14 days straight now. 200 people accounted for, 33, and we're still waiting on about 86 who are on a missing persons list. Whether all of those 86 on the missing list were in the building, not clear. But the somber news today, the search and rescue operation at the site, as we show you footage of the fire rescue workers I've been talking about, we can bring that up. Such heroic people, and have done work, as the mayor said. We have stills from the scene that I think we can put up for you right now. Have used everything from radar to dogs, done everything they could, tried to check for void spaces, have brought in teams from around the country. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue's Urban Search and Rescue Team, considered one of the very best in the world, but they and their comrades from places like Pennsylvania and elsewhere have searched and searched and searched the collapse zone site for 14 days. And with each passing day, the odds drew shorter that they might be able to find survivors. Today, there was the official acknowledgement of that. Very painful day, a devastating day, as you at home can well imagine, as the mayor and other officials had to sit down with families of victims today and tell them that indeed it is now a search and recovery operation. As again, you look at the footage there. The mayor wrapping up that news conference again in Surfside just a short while ago. And again, if you are just joining us and were not able to watch the broadcast, here in part is what Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava said just a short while ago.
It is with deep, profound sadness that this afternoon I'm able to share that we made the extremely difficult decision to transition from Operation Search and Rescue to recovery. It's now been exactly 2 weeks since Champlain Tower South collapsed, and over the last 14 days, you all know that our search and rescue teams from our local community, from around Florida, from around the country, and in fact around the world, have been digging through this collapse. They've used every possible strategy and every piece of technology available to them to find people in the rubble. They've removed over 7 million pounds of concrete and debris from the mound. They've used sonar, cameras, dogs, heavy machinery. They've searched for void spaces and they've searched for victims. They ran into a building they were told could collapse, and they braved fire, smoke, torrential rain, and strong winds in the hopes of finding people alive. We demolished the standing building in just days in order to be able to expand access to the full collapse site. Our top priority throughout this entire operation, since day one, has been to do everything possible, everything humanly possible, and to explore every single portion of the collapse grid in search of survivors. It is with...
So, Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava speaking just a short while ago from Surfside. Marcia Gilmore's comment sums up what so many of you are saying. We'll put that up from Marcia Gilmore. I'm so sorry, she says. God bless all the families. And thank you, rescue people, for all your hard work. My producer, Monica, I don't know if you can put Marcia's comment here. Angela, there we go. All the comments, so many of you saying the same thing, offering your prayers and condolences, as indeed the entire community, the entire state, the entire nation and world are doing. 14 days of search and rescue efforts by some of the most heroic people you will ever meet, led by Miami-Dade firefighters. God bless them all. Beverly Bailey Ruck says the official death toll standing at 54 tonight. the number of missing 86. It's not again clear whether all 86 on that missing list, people who were actually in the Champlain Tower when it collapsed. They're still with Miami-Dade police detectives trying to ascertain that, as your comments again. Rosanna Santa Capita here at the bottom, God be extremely protective over all the rescue workers and forces working so hard and having to carry the burden of what they uncover. So movingly said, Rosanna. We've talked about that. I was at the scene just a few hours after it happened, and then much of last week, and talking with people who were familiar with the work that rescue crews were doing. It is simply impossible for me or for you at home to fully comprehend, perhaps to even partially comprehend, the level of danger they were facing and trying to work a collapse zone site where you didn't know when there might be problems on the collapse zone. Then on the 4th of July, amidst concerns, growing concerns about what remained of the tower becoming more unstable, they took that down. Since the 4th of July, that's allowed them more access to the collapse zone site. Sadly, though, it has also brought with it a sharply mounting, officially confirmed death toll. Lisa Nardi says prayers for all the families affected. I pray for you all. God bless, as everybody in the community does. Donation sites have been set up. I know many of you at home have taken advantage of those, donating to funds and to victims of loved ones who lived at Champlain South Tower, built in 1980. It was 1:30 in the morning, June 24th, when suddenly a thundering roar was announced to those who, talking to survivors just hours later, one woman said, "We heard the roar. We went to our door. When we opened it, literally just down the hall, collapse." It was the difference of perhaps 20 yards that separated one survivor I talked to from living or dying. She made it out with her husband. Others helped people, elderly people, get out of the building, all of them fully appreciating how lucky they are to be alive. And yet there is that part of the story too. The mayor talked movingly a short while ago. The survivors went relatively near to the site today. They know full well the blessing they have to have escaped with their lives. They're grieving the loss of their neighbors, their friends, their loved ones, but also grieving the fact that their own lives, their pictures, their personal effects, all of what they had in places they called home on the seashore, gone. And so they're dealing with that sense of loss, the even more overwhelming loss of friends. And Bob Trinchetto at the bottom, there are no words. Again, every comment here, so all of Missy, so heartbreaking. Bob Trinchetto, there are no words. Rest in peace. Nicole Dunbar, God bless them all. The comments, all of you, as all of us, our hearts break for what has happened there. And the longer term questions, of course, and perhaps, Monica, we can put the picture back up, the still pictures of the rescue workers have been such heroes there. And I've worked under the most arduous of circumstances, the most dangerous of circumstances. The mayor said at one point, willingly going into a building at one point. They pulled back from going to the building some time ago, but at least early on, we're going into a building that, what was left of it, that was unstable and had that kind of courage and commitment. These rescue crews were in their debt, and their hearts break. They live and work in the community. One Miami firefighter lost loved ones there. So it's a story, a tragedy that has touched so many people. There's also the other part of it, and I'd be curious if any of you want to weigh in. How many of you have loved ones who live in seaside condos in Florida? Tens upon tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people do so. And one of the big issues that's going to have to be confronted about the safety, there have been the reports that have come out about concerns about the structural integrity of the Champlain Tower, is back in 2018. Were those heated properly? What about money to be set aside for that? What about internal debates with condominium boards? What about ongoing issues that state lawmakers, local lawmakers are going to have to take up about toughening statutes, toughening inspection standards, making sure that condominium associations are doing what they need to do to stay on repair schedules and to have the expertise to know when to do that. Enormous issues that are going to have to be confronted. I would dare say that almost every one of you who's written, like me, knows somebody or a lot of people who live in condominiums in South Florida and beyond. And so these are profound issues that are going to have to be taken up. You're beginning to hear that discussion right now. Of course, the focus, as so many of you have said, on those who have passed away. The official death toll announced just a little while ago, now at 54 confirmed deaths. 33 of those, one of you had asked, 33 of those 54 confirmed deaths are people who have been identified. They let their next of kin know. They've been very careful to make sure they've stayed in constant communication with the loved ones of victims. But the last 14 days has been a hell that none of us can imagine. Waiting, hoping, and then hoping and hoping again, and then hoping against hope that somehow, some way there might be a miracle. And Angela Bartlett Smith, continued prayers for all. Lisa Nardi, prayers for all the families affected. I pray for all of you. God bless all of you with the same beautiful, somber sentiments. All of us, and I know those of you at home feel as I do, all of us do, helpless to do anything but offer community support and hugs and donations. Lisa Nardi, maybe there would be a miracle, will be. The young boy was found 2 weeks ago. We still have to pray. We have to have faith. And that's quite true, Lisa. Having said that, and that's quite true, eloquently said, the boy who was found was pulled in the very early hours of the collapse. And sadly, since then, no other survivor was found. And so while we can all pray for a miracle, the hard reality for victims' families is simply that at this point, some of the best in the world who, believe me, agonized over the decision to say we're officially going from search and rescue to search and recovery. For them to say that, for them to do that, Benny Rose, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, my heart hurts for everyone affected. For the firefighters to inform other experts and for them to go to the mayor and say, listen, we have to acknowledge the hard reality here, speaks volumes. And thinking of all of you, maybe another miracle. Of course, you pray for that. But realistically, sadly, no miracles likely, no miracles to be found. I would say, however, those who were able to escape, when you look at what happened there, that was its own miracle. When I talked to survivors who were yards away from having the same calamity happen to them. So different kinds of miracles, but certainly there as you talk about that. And again, I think the discussion will be, I asked some of you, how many of you know loved ones who live in condominiums? Because this will be the discussion and debate going forward about how we make sure that, as the mayor said, this cannot happen again. But that's a long, involved process. Jeff Famagletti, thank God for our police and fire rescuers. Amen to that, Jeff. They've been such heroes out there doing work in the most dangerous of circumstances. Sharon asked, when did the rescue teams go home? When I say rescue teams, rescue and recovery, these are the same teams who will continue to do recovery work, Sharon. It's a good question. The same exact teams will continue to do the work. It's just a different mode that they have to acknowledge at this point, that they're in a recovery mode. And I think somebody took issue with the calamity, catastrophe. You may use your own words, but let's take that down. With all due respect, Carol, I will leave all of you to, there really are no words. Catastrophic and heart-wrenching. Let's leave it at that. Lisa Nardi asked Benny Rose, I'm so sorry. Lisa Nardi says, what's this mean? They do not stop. Let's be clear. No, they don't stop anything. And crystal clear, somebody's asked, and we don't need to belabor that, but they're not stopping anything. But they're acknowledging that at this point, 2 weeks in, that they're here to, with grace and dignity, as they've done throughout, to recover those who died. And they will not stop until that work is done. So nobody's leaving the site. They'll continue to do that work. And again, prayers for all the families. As so many of you have eloquently said, we go on and appreciate your comments here. Again, that news conference wrapping up just a short while ago. Some of you have already heard the comment from the mayor. I realize on our streaming platform, some of you come in at a different point in our digital broadcast. So I do think for any of you who are just joining, we will begin to close where we began. Again, we are now in search and recovery mode. Crews are still on the scene. They'll remain on the scene in Surfside. The search for victims goes on. The work with families there goes on. The work to try to help survivors goes on, and the long-term work to find answers so that something like this cannot happen again, because at the end of the day, Judy Louise saying prayers to the family, prayers to the families indeed. All the task force from all the states continue to work. Dean Davidson sums it up well. All the task force from all the states continue to work. You're quite right about that, Dean. For those of you, again, just joining us, Dean, thank you for your comment. They just understand the likelihood of finding someone alive is low. And again, yes, we pray for those miracles. I know for all of you, it's been gut-wrenching to watch this. All of our hearts go out this. Prayers for all the families, prayers to all the rescue workers, sights that can never be unseen. Bless them all, says Darling. Again, for those of you who may have just joined us, we'll begin to close where we began with Mayor Daniela Levine Cava with the news that came about an hour ago at a news conference that wrapped up about a half hour ago. Let's listen once more, for those of you just joining us, to Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, Miami-Dade.
It is with deep, profound sadness that this afternoon I'm able to share that we made the extremely difficult decision to transition from Operation Search and Rescue to Recovery. It's now been exactly 2 weeks since Champlain Tower South collapsed, and over the last 14 days, you all know that our search and rescue teams from our local community, from around Florida, from around the country, and in fact around the world, have been digging through this collapse. They've used every possible strategy and every piece of technology available to them to find people in the rubble. They've removed over 7 million pounds of concrete and debris from the mound. They've used sonar, cameras, dogs, heavy machinery. They've searched for void spaces, and they've searched for victims. They ran into a building they were told could collapse, and they braved fire, smoke, torrential rain, and strong winds in the hopes of finding people alive. We demolished the standing building in just days in order to be able to expand access to the full collapse site. Our top priority throughout this entire operation, since day one, has been to do everything possible, everything humanly possible, and to explore every single portion of the collapse grid in search of survivors.
So, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava speaking a short while ago. The confirmed death toll officially 54, 86 missing, unaccounted for. Whether all 86 are missing and unaccounted for were in the building, Miami-Dade police detectives trying to discern that. A number of you have written in, and let me reiterate, these fire, rescue, and now recovery teams are some of the most courageous people you'll meet. They're going to continue. They have said, the mayor said, they've said, we're going to continue to work with the same diligence. We are not leaving the site. We will not flag in our efforts. Paraphrasing here, but their sentiment is, we are here until every victim has been recovered. So we can at least give that bit of closure to families. When you're in Miami, William Cavitas mentioned, yes, I did spend 27 years reporting to Miami, and it seems almost that everybody in Miami seems to know somebody. My wife and I have friends who lost loved ones in that, my wife and I have friends who lost loved ones who were their in-laws in that condominium. So yeah, it's been a tough many weeks. And I know many people who knew of or knew somebody, and it's been tough. But for all of us, we as this community support the victims and their families. There are many, many opportunities. I know that you've had a chance to see them, for you to help donate to efforts to help those who have lost so much, to help those who have survived and now are out of their homes. They plan to have seaside retirement lives and their lives too. They mourn the loss of their neighbors and not sure where they're going to go. And the larger questions we will continue to pursue. You see them in every media outlet. These are profound questions that are not going to come with easy answers. Ultimately, why ultimately did this happen? A lot of reports have come out about building issues there and problems with construction and structural integrity issues, but there are huge federal, state, and local investigations on that. That's going to be crucial. We're going to be talking about this forever. Surfside will, in many ways, be synonymous with a total rethink about how we look at safety in these kind of high rises. And again, we appreciate those of you taking time to join us. And I think we will finish on that comment, Lois Tedesco. Let's put that back up, because I think Lois Tedesco summed it up well. Just too sad. May the families be comforted. And that is eloquently said. We will leave it there. We'll have full coverage for you tonight on air at 11 o'clock, the very latest, and of course online as well. For now, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your kind, thoughtful, and insightful comments on this, the conclusion of day 14 at the Champlain Tower Recovery Site, Surfside, just north of Miami Beach, where prayers go out to everyone, and where the mayor said just about an hour or so ago, search and recovery efforts now underway, search and rescue giving way to the acknowledgement that they are going full tilt with search and recovery and will not rest as they try to give the victims that sense of closure at least. So again, on this latest sad night in Surfside, and there have been so many, we thank you for joining us, and I wish you and yours all the very best. Good night.